Wait just a couple minutes. I know I'm very conscious of the time, but we're gonna wait just a couple minutes and allow some others to get in before we get started. Again, good morning. Appreciate y'all taking time to come to the superintendent's meeting. This seems to be the menu of the day for us, or the menu of the year. Everything seems to be virtual and Zoom. And we're trying to take advantage of it as much as we can so we can get you the information that you basically need. One way we can handle any questions that may come up is that you may want to just, type it in the chat room, and I'll continue to visit that and maybe answer some questions. Or if you're up there with your face showing, you could raise your hand, and we could probably look at that too, and I could recognize you in that way. And I think that'll give us the best opportunity to operate with some form of order. In the past, when you would come and we'd have these meetings, I would introduce the staff to you. This time, some of the staff members are online with us, but then they'll probably pop their picture up, then you can see who they are. I won't ask them to give any information one way or the other on it. But I do want to introduce you to one new member that we have, which is Keith Warren. He's a new technology person, and while he's he's contracted with us. So he's not truly an employee because we don't provide him any type of benefits. So he's not considered a full-time employee, but I'm telling you, he's functioning as one. He's in this office at least twice a week. And he's one that's going to help us to move forward with technology as far as type of meetings we could possibly have, a better way to get information to you. He comes to us from the Mississippi High School League, and I mean, he's hit the ground running. He started when we came back in January, first part of January, and he has done a fantastic job. Now, as we work our way through some of these challenges with technology, as far as communicating with you, we're going to hit some bumps. I'm just going to ask that you continue to be patient with us as we work our way through it. And I assure you that we're going to be better because of it. And because of him, because he is really working hard to keep us, to get us in the forefront as far as technology is. These type of meetings will probably become the norm for us. We look forward to the time that we can come back and have face-to-face. But in the meantime, and in addition to those face-to-face, I think we should take advantage of it, communicate technology.
I will say this.
I'd also ask that if you would have your microphone on mute, and that way we don't hear any of your conversation in the background, then everybody will be able to hear me, and we'll be able to ask and entertain questions at that time. So again, I would ask that everybody have their microphone on mute while we do this. Before I start, is there anybody that has any questions about what we're going to do? Okay, so we have an agenda. It didn't change because nobody's saying anything different than what we had when I sent it out to you with the notice. So I've got some additional information that other topics where I would just add some stuff, but I'll share those with you as we go along. First, the bylaws and constitutional changes. That's the biggest thing that we have. These are the constitutional bylaw changes that wish to go into effect for 21-22. These bylaw and constitutional changes has to be vetted or voted on by the Legislative Assembly. That meeting is scheduled for March 16, 2021. Our preference is to have that meeting in person. But if not, we'll have a Zoom option. With that meeting, We're going to hold it at the district office of Richland 2. We want to have it at Richland 2 district office. They've got a very big building. Those of you that don't know it, got a very big building. They could hold conferences there. So we feel that we can provide the social distancing, but only the delegates will be in attendance. We will have this web streamed or somehow we'll get it out to where the entire membership can view the Legislative Assembly meeting. But we're only asking that the delegates, and some of you superintendents of those delegates, be in attendance at that meeting. We won't have both options where we can vote Zoom. We're either going to all be able to vote Zoom or all be able to vote in person. So it's really going to be important that we have those delegates there at that meeting. Again, that's scheduled for 10 o'clock, March 16th at the Richland School District, Richland 2, at their district office. These constitution proposals I'm going to share with you, they have already been vetted through the executive committee, and they gave their recommendation as to whether to support it or not support it. But their recommendation does not count as a vote. It can't be determined of the vote. Only the delegates can vote. They can give an opinion, but theirs does not ensure that it will pass, or it would fail based on their vote. So they were only able to give their opinion. And that's why I won't share it with you, so that you can have discussion with those that are in your region or those or your schools, so that you can share with them how they need to look at these and vote on them. Okay. Here are the proposals that we have, in case you don't have them with you. Of course, I'll start up with the Constitution. And basically, the first one is the Article 5, Section 3A and B, classification and membership. And basically, all it's doing is putting down in writing the things that we're already doing. And what it is that we will use factors other than enrollment count to determine classifications in regions, other than just enrollment count. Now, we've always done it in the past. We've used factors other than enrollment in the past. We use geographics. We use a plus or minus. So we don't follow exactly just straight by enrollment anyway. What we've done is reduced it to writing and saying that we will use multiple factors to include enrollment count. So it just kind of gives the flexibility to whoever group they propose to do it. It gives them flexibility to use something other than what's written in the book. It does provide some flexibility. Now, nothing will be done that would be considered roguish. Any factors that's used will be vetted through the membership. We've always done it. What do you want? What do you want priority to be? Do you want it to be geographics? Do you want it to be same number of teams in each classification, same number of teams in each region? I mean, all those things we've always looked at and discussed it with the membership before we would put together the realignment that we're going to use. So again, the only thing we've done, the change is to include the term multiple factors to include school enrollment count. It's the only change. Now, this one was submitted by me and actually was approved by supported by the executive committee. Any questions about that? And Cindy, if any questions come up, if you would just interrupt me and if they, especially if they text it in, if they would chat it in. Having no questions. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Actually, the next one is Article 5, Section 3D. And basically, all this does is clarify what the authority of the appellate panel is. Now, you'll see this in a couple places under their powers and duties, but also under the realignment piece of how we address that, and really the appeal process. If schools want to appeal their placement in the classification and or region, the appellate panel is one of the groups that you can appeal to. Actually, it's the final group. Well, what we wanted to do was clarify that they do have the authority by state law or proviso to hear appeals on classification. They, by authority, they do have the authority by law or proviso to hear those appeals. I mean, we also wanted to put it in there so that we don't have to continue to revisit that. If they are granted additional authority by state proviso or state law, then it's already incorporated in what they're able to do. They're able to hear appeals to any decision that's made to the executive committee. So all it does is clarifies that authority to them. Again, I submitted that based on information and calls I would get that impact those areas. So I submitted that for the membership to look at. Again, probably is more of an editorial, but the only way we can get it in is through like a constitutional bylaw change. Questions on it? Okay, we'll move to the third one. This one, again, now we're into the bylaws, Article 5, Article 7, league passes. And basically this one just addresses the use of the league pass. It originally states that it will be honored for league playoff contests. Well, it can be used for any league-sponsored athletic event, regular season and all playoffs. So it clarifies that if they've got those the league pass, it counts as either a ticket or a voucher. If you have a contest, those passes ought to be honored. If they're a league-sponsored or league-sanctioned contest, those passes ought to be honored. Now, I realize during these times of the virus and you got limited attendance that you can permit to go in there, we recognize that. But you can't just sell out all of your tickets and say no league passes. We would ask that you save a percentage of spots for league passes. I don't know what that number is, maybe 5%, maybe 10 people, whatever it is. But you provide the opportunity for the league pass to be used for that limited number, just as you only got a limited number of tickets that you can sell. So that way, once those passes, or once those people come in, that number of people that you're going to allow to come in, you don't have to accept any more league pass, but you've got to give a window. And I would suggest you do that as opposed to, if you're pre-selling all of your tickets, let somebody show up with a pass, call you with a pass and come and get a couple tickets, because you don't know what challenges that could create for you. So I would just leave a limited number. And those that really want to get in, they'll buy a ticket. They'll buy a ticket. They'll buy a ticket ahead of time. You're providing the opportunity for them to get a pass, for them to be admitted. Again, but it never stated that, it just usually state that only league passes will be honored for playoff contests. Well, that pass is good to get into any contest that's sanctioned or sponsored by the league without them being charged for it. It serves as a ticket or a voucher for them. Hopefully this clarifies the intended use of the league pass. We've had some big tournaments that go on where schools are saying, well, we're not accepting any league passes. You need to accept the league passes for those tournaments, for those invitational tournaments. In normal years, this shouldn't be a problem, but I understand the challenges with the limited seating that's available. Questions? Okay, we'll move to the next one. Cindy? Okay, great. Okay, this one, again, as I told you earlier, speaks in terms of the powers and duties of the appellate panel. And again, all it does is clarifies that if they have permission by law or proviso, they have the authority to make decisions based on appeals that brought before them that comes from the executive committee. If the executive committee makes a decision, that decision can be appealed to the appellate panel by authority of law or proviso. All it does, again, clarifies their authority of the appellate panel. Questions? Again, those four were presented by me. The executive committee recommended the approval of all of those. And again, I share with you that that's only as a recommendation and opinion. They don't have the authority to make it approved or not approved. That resides with the appellate panel, with the Legislative Assembly only. And then the last one we have that's submitted by Fox Creek High School. This is basically a bylaws where it addresses transfers and student eligibility. And the only change here is that if the student transfers and doesn't meet one of those exceptions, that's A through N, bona fide change of address, parent-to-parent move, water to court, you name it. Any of those things that come up of where you can intra-district transfer, any of those type things, that the student be eligible in any sport he or she did not participate in the last time that sport was offered by our membership during those sports seasons. So I'm gonna give you an example. If a student went to school A and played cross country, ran cross country in the fall, didn't do anything in the winter, and then in the spring played baseball, and then the student transfers to school B, but didn't transfer under one of those exceptions, A through N, that student would be ineligible in all sports except those that he or she didn't play the previous year. So as I mentioned it before, students started out with cross country, nothing in the winter, and baseball in the spring. That student would be eligible for basketball and or wrestling. Those are the only two sports they would be eligible. The others, they have to sit out that 365 days. So the question comes up now, you sat out a year, and that was the purpose. If you transfer so that we can mitigate any type of recruiting or the likes, you have to sit out a year before you can play the sport. Well, does it matter where you sat out the year? At the former school or at the new school? If the goal is that the student sits out from the sport for a year, then it shouldn't matter where the student sat out. A little bit challenging, but the student participated at any level the previous year, that student is ineligible in those sports until that sports season has gone through at least once. Questions? Okay, I'll add one more piece to it. In addition to that, if the student doesn't meet any of those standards, and let's say the student played all sports the previous year, and the student transferred to the new school, if the two schools can agree, the student is eligible to compete at the sub-varsity level only. If the student played all sports the previous year, if the student transfers, the student will be ineligible in all sports unless the two principals or the two principals from the two schools agree. The student could be eligible at the sub-varsity level in all sports. So you take that and go back to the other one. The sports that he or she didn't play, they can play varsity. The sports that he or she did play, they can play sub-varsity on. Questions? Again, this was supported by the executive committee. So as we move it forward to, of course, all of these will have to go before the Legislative Assembly before they can be enacted into our Constitution and bylaws. Those are the items. Those are the Constitution and bylaw changes that we have in front of us. Those are the ones that's going to be voted on March 16th. You've got this information, share with your principals and or athletic directors as to the direction they need to follow in addressing that. Two other things will occur at the Legislative Assembly meeting. One would be who does the reclassification realignment. That can be done by a separate group from each classification. You divide the schools down and they create a committee to divide them into regions. Or you can get members from each classification to do it, from all classifications. Or you can get a disinterested party. Nobody that has any affiliation with any of the schools can do it. In the past, that's what the membership has done. And the league staff has been the one that's been asked to, or dictated to conduct the realignment reclassification piece. We'll be glad to do it if that's what we're directed to do. We're not asking for it, we're not begging for it, but if we're directed to do it, we will definitely be glad to do it. That decision has to be made at the legislative assembly meeting. Again, we're going to use next year's 45-day enrollment count. We'll use grades 9 through 11 to dictate, schools classification in our regions. And then the second thing that they'll have to do is what is going to be the amount for membership dues. They have to make that decision there. We just changed it last year, and all, pointing to where we are now, all those, it appears to be good. I don't know that we need to make a change, but we have to say we want to continue to go with what we have, or we have the opportunity to change how we do membership dues. Any questions? Those are the bylaw and constitutional changes. Okay. All right. Then I'll move on down to the next item that we have, which is sports season changes for the 21-22 school year. We made a lot of sports season changes this year for the 2021. Of course, the virus has dictated that we had to do a lot of things differently. We started sports seasons at a different time. We limited the number of contests in some of our sports. All those things we looked at. So as we move forward to next school year, we don't know what challenges will be there for us as far as what the virus could bring to us or anything else that comes up. So we're beginning to plan on what those sports season changes ought to be. And these will be discussed in the classification meetings. And they'll talk about it during the spring conference, because it will be virtual. Spring conference will be virtual. And then they'll give some directions back to the executive committee as to how we need to move forward on it for the next school year. One of the things we did was staggering starts for our sports, much like we did this past year. Stagger the starts, have a certain number of sports to start, even though they're in the same sports season, have a certain number start on this date, a certain number start on this date, and a certain number start on this date. All sports should be limited to 2 scrimmages and a jamboree. We're looking at continuing to do that. Sub-varsity, of course, will still get 1 scrimmage and 1 jamboree. If we look at, if we're talking about playoffs, and you qualify through the region, then even if it's seeding, the brackets ought to be 16 teams. We've done 16 teams so far this year, and the feedback I've gotten has been that this has worked very well. There's a lot of schools that felt forced to go to the playoffs, that the 3rd and 4th place team, and truly didn't want to go, but having to have a lot of travel and a lot of costs for a game that truly probably wasn't going to make a big difference. Now, in some cases, it does make a difference, but for the most part, when we dropped it to 16 teams, the feedback has been that that's worked very well for them. But in addition to it, each team that don't make the playoffs get an extra opportunity to play 1 additional game in all those sports. If you didn't make the playoff, those bracketed sports, if you didn't make the playoff, you get an opportunity to play 1 additional game of your choosing. And that could be a local game that you would have, and call it a bowl game, a showcase, or whatever it is. And it's an opportunity for you to generate some more funds, you and you're another school. I would suggest that if you do, that it becomes a shared gate that they could use and shared expense that you could use. But that will still be your call. Those funds can be shared among the two schools that decide to do that additional game. Questions? Of course, there'll be many other things that we will probably have, and I'm just giving you kind of the overall look at it. As we look into those sports season changes, there may be more things that we'll have to look at and figure out what else needs to happen. We want to reduce the number of teams at the state finals in cheer and in cross country. Again, here's an opportunity to, for lack of a better term, upgrade those that are there by still allowing the teams to try to qualify. Nothing prohibits them from trying to qualify, but reduce the number of them that gets to qualify. We'll try to drop those numbers down below almost 25% of what, reduce it by at least 25% of what they normally would have, trying to bring those together. So we reduce the numbers in those of teams at the state finals for cheer and cross country. We did it this year, worked very well. And almost worked too well because a couple of our schools in cheer, the week of the championship, contracted the buyers. So our numbers even dropped more. But I think in the long run, this will be the best. This will probably benefit us the best if we reduce those numbers as we go through. Questions? Okay, so I'll continue to go. Open season for the fall sports in April and May. Normally we allow fall sports to have open season during April and May. One is where cheerleaders actually select their squad. The other is football had limited number of days of which they could do contact in pads. It will be, the exec committee has not made a decision on that part yet, but it would be my recommendation that we don't permit, for lack of a better term, fall sports in April and May, fall sports season in April and May. I think we can go to June 1 and they can still get all the work that they need done or get all the practices or workouts or training. If they start June 1, as we normally do, I think they will be okay. I will also make the recommendation that we don't allow the football to use pads during the open season period. We don't allow them to use pads this year because we're trying to limit the number of people that's going to be on your campus. As we move into the spring sports, you're going to have the largest number of students in your school on campus, and we want to try to mitigate that as much as possible by not having those that not necessarily have to be there on your campus. I understand they still get to work out and to work out in the weight room, and you may do some conditioning, but you can monitor that and you can kind of guide that. The competition time, that's the group we want to make sure that we provide the best opportunity to. That's the group that didn't get a chance to have a spring sports season last year. So we want to do all the things that we can to not compromise them because we've got people there in attendance that doesn't necessarily need to be there. So if we eliminate some of the activities that occur with those that are not actually in season, I think it kind of helps us as we work our way through it. I do suggest though that we provide 2 weeks in May for cheerleaders to select their teams. They normally try to get it done in April and May, but I suggest that we do 2 weeks in May to allow the cheerleaders to conduct tryouts and select their teams. Again, that will be my suggestion to the exec committee. Of course, that authority resides with them, but my suggestion from our staff and myself is that we don't do open season for the fall sports this year. And we'll look at it next year and see what that can possibly do for us. Questions? Okay, some other topics that I wanted to share with you before we end out on it. The basketball playoffs, that format has changed. We're not going to be at a central site for our semifinals. That's going to be, could be a neutral site. We're still working our way through that. But we normally had our semifinals at a central site and all games were played there over a 2-day period. We don't see how we can accomplish that. With the limited number of spectators that's going to be allowed and the process of having to clean out the facility between games, we don't think we could feasibly get it done in a time that would make sense for us. But then the finals, we're trying to find one central site to play those, but we're going to do those over a 3-day period. We want to look at a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And we'll play 3 games on Thursday, 3 games on Friday, and 4 games on Saturday. The actual start of the games on Thursday and Friday, the first games those days will be, while it will be a little challenging, will be at 12 o'clock. We're looking at 12, 4, and 8, which means those students will have to, miss school, or at least part of the day of school, and trying to get it done. But this is our best format that we thought we could possibly come up with. We can find one site that can do all 10, but at different times, that's going to work for us best. And this is what we have. And if we can't find a central site for it, we may have to use more sites, which means these times may have to be adjusted.
Who's trying to get the information?
Questions on? Wrestling, we believe that we can do those finals at one site in one, and possibly in one day. We can do the finals because it's four classifications that will be wrestling. So we think we can do one site in one day and get it done. But then when we go to individuals state finals, which is a little bit different. All year we've been saying no spectators at the individual contests, individual invitational tournaments, no spectators. But we want to follow that. We'll have no spectators at the state individual championship. We'll web stream it. We'll put it as much as we can out there in the public, Facebook it, whatever it takes. NFHS could web stream it, but there'll be no spectators will be in attendance, and we've already did it once with swimming. We didn't allow any spectators. We just posted it on the website, and they was able to web stream it through the NFHS network. We're even limiting the number of athletes that will be in attendance at the individual championship. We reduced that number from 8 to 6, and there is no wrestle back for most of them. So again, we're just trying to get the least number of people there that could create any challenges for us as far as the virus, but still give these kids a great opportunity to participate. And we said from the very beginning, if we could get a regular season, we're going to count those as wins. If we can get the playoff, that's great. But if we can do regular season, we got to count those as wins. So you remember back in June, July, August, we didn't know that we were going to have seasons, but we were able to have some seasons. And so we got to count those as wins. And if we can get these through a regular season and get to our spring sports and get those kids an opportunity that they missed out on last year. And again, I'm committed that if we can get them a regular season, playoffs are great. But if we can get them a regular season, we got to count those as wins. Questions? Okay. 2 priorities that the executive committee had for this school year. One was to increase the promotion and recognition of our female sports. And if you've been following us or following the TU's news or following our website, you'll see that a lot of information is being shared about our women in sports. Some doing our swim championship. We did it over 2 days. We gave the featured day, if there's such a thing, to the women or the female sports, which was swim. And they did it Saturday, and we had the male to come in on Monday. So if there was opportunities for people to view it, it was on the weekend, and we provided that for our females to participate. We also had a lot of records that were broken by our females, and we publicized that. And we did it some in cross country, some in golf, some in swim, record setting. You follow our Tuesday News or go on our website, you'll see that we've really worked hard at trying to promote that. We did our press conferences for our championships, the tennis and the volleyball and the likes, and we did that by Zoom virtually and put it on our website and had it on the NFHS network. So it was really a whole lot of recognition and supporting of our female sports this year, one of the priorities. And we'll continue to do that. I mean, we're not done yet. We got more sports season going on, and we're going to continue to look into those things and find ways to promote that. The other is to look at if there are ways to do realignment other than just enrollment count. And the committee has been created to look at that and develop that. And they're going to come with some ideas. Maybe we look at a success factor, maybe we don't. Maybe we look at socioeconomic factors, maybe we don't. Maybe we look at location, proximity to major cities, maybe we don't. But all those things are ideas. I've asked them to think outside the box and not stifle themselves by saying we can't do this. I'm saying let's look at what we possibly can, let's figure out how we can. And they've been working real hard. They've already had 2 meetings. I think they've got a 3rd one coming up, or no, they've already had 3 meetings, and they've got another one coming up. And they'll continue to work, and they'll bring something forward for everybody to look at. Again, nothing's going to be done without you being aware of it. It'll be ideas that we'll put out there for the membership to vet and give them feedback, and they'll put it, and they'll work on it some more. And even with that those have to be vetted and approved or modified or rejected by the executive committee. Again, it didn't say we have to do something different. It just says find and investigate if there are other ways to do it other than just by enrollment count. But we're well on our way in trying to get that done. Questions? One last piece I'd like to share with you before we end the meeting is this past week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we held our first virtual leadership summit. And I've got to tell you, it went very well. It went very well. The staff worked real hard putting it together, and we had some other people out on the outside that helped us with it. But if you had an opportunity to see some of it, you would have to say that it was very good. Had 3 outstanding presenters, and we're going to have this on our website that you can go and see it if you choose to. It lasts about an hour and a half each day, but it went very good. It was shown. We probably average at least 500 to 600 people there per day that were part of it. Great questions. Other state associations was watching it, so we knew we saw it all over the country, maybe internationally too, but I knew all over the country that it was being witnessed, and it worked very well for us. That is one of the things that even when we moved back to doing it face-to-face and we've done in the past, I think we can still take small ones and do them through a virtual. Fantastic job been done, but again, more to come, lots more to come. And again, it worked real well. The Virtual Leadership Summit, 3 great days. If your student athletes had any opportunity to be a part of it, you may want to talk with them and ask them to give you some feedback because it did work real well for them and worked real well from this office. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all that I have. Any questions on anything that's been covered? Again, the bylaws and Constitution piece has to be voted on by the legislative delegates. If you are a delegate, I ask that you take this information back to your region and have it discussed And it was not my intention to try to influence you to pass them or not. I just wanted to share the information with you so that you can be comfortable discussing it with your region, those bylaws and constitutional proposals, and come up with an answer of whether you're going to support it or not support it. My door is always open. If you got questions on it, don't hesitate to give me a call. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. We're going to start meeting with classifications next week. Not actually next week, and the rest of this week and next week. And I've shared this with all of the delegates of each classification. And when they have the classification meeting, I won't go into great detail about the bylaws and constitution changes. I'll just ask if there are questions. The expectation is that the delegates will have already taken them through the great discussion on it. And if there are questions, then I'll address those. If not, I'll be sharing with them some of those other items that I just shared with y'all. Any questions? And I want to thank y'all for your time. Know that this office is always available to you. Any questions or anything that we can answer and any way we can help, don't hesitate to let us know. I've taken a lot of interviews, and I've shared each time with them that the superintendents and their district are doing a great job in monitoring and making decisions about their sports season. And I think the best decision made was to allow you to do it locally, because you got a better view of it than if we try to do it statewide. Everybody's situation was just a little bit different. So you being able to operate with it locally was probably the best decision that possibly happened. We're going to try to get some more information out to you. One of the questions that came up was, is there a protocol for returning to play after having been tested positive for the virus, especially if you've been sick? How do we return to play? I'm meeting again with representation from DHEC and from the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, and coming to you soon will be recommendations, not directions, not policies, or not guidelines, recommendations of what you may want to consider as you look at return to play after somebody's gone through testing positive, especially those that had to sit out 10, 12, 14 days before they got back to playing. If there are no questions, that's all that I have. Thank you all very much. And we'll keep you aware of what's going on. And if we have another meeting, we'll notify you on that also. Thank you.